Hi, I'm Rasheed, Ogunlaru, coach, speaker, author. I'm here with my good friend, Adam Cox, author now of Back to Brilliant, as well as health and wellbeing coach. Really is Back to Brilliant. I mean, I'm really excited about this book, and I just thought it'd be good to chat to you a little bit about it. Tell me what inspired writing the book, because I know that you've worked with lots of people on the wellbeing, especially where people have had injury or they've had health and wellbeing problems. But what made you decide to then become an author as well?
I thought it was a good way of sort of distilling everything that I've learned over the last 12, 13 years, probably a lifetime really, of learning and observation, working one-on-one with clients, but also, as I say in the book, working on myself first and foremost. In the intro to the book I talk about how for 10 years I was going backwards and forwards to a doctor and not really seeing any changes in my own health and well-being. I had basically chronic stomach pains that just would come on periodically, and so I started to look for other ways of addressing it after having an operation that didn't really solve the problem. And therefore saw that there were other people in the same situation.
And I guess it was pronounced for you because you were high performing athlete as a swimmer, so health and wellbeing was really important for you. So it must have been really the word that came into my mind, I don't know if it was, but it must be really traumatic when you rely on health and wellbeing, your fitness, and you want to compete, and then you find yourself your health is, and then you can't find answers. So that must have been quite a journey.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it stopped me training. The pain did.
Right.
So for me, the swimming was probably the sort of cornerstone of my centerpiece of my life at the time. Everything was geared around what I thought making it to the top of my sport at that age.
But then the thing that jumps out at me then is that, because then there's something that jumps out at me. We jump to the work that you do now. Then the move was to become personal trainer, then specialising in holistic well-being and all of the rest of it.
As a Czech practitioner.
Yeah, is there a feeling that then life, it was almost meant to work out that way, that the work that you do now was even more important than the work as being than being an athlete?
Yeah, I think it was the very foundation from which everything else that I do now was built.
Right.
The people that work with, patients that have had, or clients that have had the same challenges, or having the same challenges that you have had, you've got that connection, you've got that understanding. It's not just information, it's knowledge, it's real understanding, and I think that's quite important, I think, when it comes to being able to help someone, because you can really level with someone where they're at.
Right, and there's something interesting about again, that with your work in this field, your starting point with health and well-being seems a very different starting point than very often where people are traditional personal trainers or fitness coaches or what have you. You are very mindful about this whole thing around recovery, around injury and so on. It's almost though you're very mindful that there will be in our journeys times where our health isn't optimal, and therefore we've got to reevaluate and come to a different space with looking at our health afresh. Is that, were you, how aware of you are that, and how aware were you in that transition as you came into this whole very saturated health and fitness arena as a practitioner?
I think I was very aware, just as I said, because of my challenges, and I was, I would probably say a sort of above average level fitness, and so if I was having those challenges, how many other people are also having maybe not the same challenges, but different challenges, but still all the same, they were having challenges, whether it's back pain, knee pain, digestive challenges, chronic headaches, menstrual problems, that would keep somebody off work, or shoulder problem, whatever it is. So there's a lot of stuff. The statistics for back pain, for example, that the World Health Organization talk about. They say that 80% of the world population will experience low back pain once in their life, with about half of that number going on to experience chronic low back pain with no real answers to it. You've got similar numbers. Not quite as high, but you've got similar numbers for things like shoulders, and those are the easy statistics or easy things to put stats on.
Right.
There's all sorts of other digestive challenges and things like that are not quite as easy to pin down. And
what you became,
but still are very, very common.
So sounds like you became very, very curious about this whole range of concerns. So, because again, I'm just looking here at the back of the book, and it says you'll learn how to overcome self-sabotage, find renewed energy and vibrancy, gain clarity from confusing nutritional advice, and find what works for you. Move with increased ease. Make exercise a joy. Reduce aches and pains that suppress your enjoyment and freedom. It's interesting, isn't it? So there seems to be this very real challenge that may well emerge, and then all of this kind of stress, it sounds, lifestyle-induced trauma on the body. It's.
I think the way I would summarize it is that to achieve optimal health and well-being, which is very different to achieving fitness. Fitness can be a component of it, but the super fit person is not necessarily what society would deem super fit. Is not necessarily the healthiest.
Right. So
that's probably a topic for another day.
Yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it? Though, because Adam, what's jumped at me when you said that, all of a sudden, health and well-being, it made me think, and it's a word that struck me a number of times. What is a well-being? So it sounds that your book is really about what is that there's a well-being. So
I think my answer for that would be wellness in mind, body and soul, spirit.
Right.
And so that's why in there we talk about the mindset and the heart set. I think that's your
I'm very passionate
term, that heart set and instead of mindset. So that's the first section, and we talk about nutrition, we talk about movement, absolutely, we talk about posture, and we talk about the recovery.
And you've got these 5, and you go into 5. There's 5 R's, and I wonder if you might talk us through these 5, these 5 steps.
So each element of the book is based around an R. So we've got reconnect, which is talking about the mindset, heart set, whatever you want to call it, which is really connecting back with who I am, who you are, and some of the beliefs that we have sometimes that undermine our optimal health and well-being, that can drive us to work too much.
Got it. So what strikes me about that is that I might want to get fit, healthy, whatever the word is to me, well-being, but unless I'm mindful about what's actually going on in my life, am I working too hard? Am I training correctly? Am I eating a diet that seems to feel nutritious to me? Unless as though I reconnect and really step back and ask myself some of these questions, that I could just be exacerbating problems or not getting to the root of the problem.
Yeah, well, again, I gave you some stats for back pain. One of the stats on weight loss, for example, is 83%, I think it is, of people that manage to lose weight in 12 months will put that weight back on or more.
80%, did you say?
83, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. Big number.
So hence this reconnect thing. You're talking about the.
So why do we undermine the? So we say to ourselves, I want to lose weight. I want to be like this. Picture in your mind of what you want to do, and then 12 months later we've gone back to the way we were. Why is that happening? And so in the book we talk about why that happens. Which parts of the psyche will benefit from being like that, and it's a lot around beliefs about self.
Yes.
And trying to unlock some of that, and not in a contrived, forceful way. I sometimes describe it instead of a sort of push force. It's very much just pulling force.
I did find that when I was reading the book, and I'm still quite early on in it, I quite like the fact it really did invite you to consider. You know, I was saying that before. I really like the way it was really inviting you to consider, and I thought, oh, I really want to, you know, just sit with this and just bit by bit and think, okay, what are the things I could put because I guess that this fitness thing and health and fitness thing, it is funny for all the reasons that you say. There's so many dimensions to it, and am I actually on board with my own health and well-being? And that, I guess, hence this self-sabotage thing. So you've talked about that reconnect. So by the end of chapter 1, what's your hope for the reader for the end of this the reconnect section? Where are you hoping that the reader will be at?
I think really to shed some light onto bits and pieces of the reader that they weren't perhaps aware of, habits, behaviours that they weren't aware of, that just bringing those into the foreground, they can really start to see, oh, I'm doing that again. I wonder why I'm doing that. Rather than just subconsciously, just repetitively going through those behaviours time after time after time. You know. So
once I've reconnected, so then once I've done that and I'm aware, what's the next of the 5 R's?
Rebalance, which is all about rebalancing your nutritional perspective on nutrition, breathing mechanics, and sleep. So it's very much about the sort of hormonal, digestive element of the body. So we talk a bit about food, we talk about optimal breathing mechanics, like I said, and optimal sleep patterns.
And some of those things they can sound simple, but they're so profound. One thing I happened to just notice around the last winter was that I just became very much aware of when, for example, when I was actually tired. I know we've had conversations where I think that you mentioned that very often the body will do its physical recovery. I think you said from 10 p.m. through to 2 a.m. so on. So, and I was noticing to find around that 10ish time, because I'm quite a morning person, I'd find that there was a real tiredness, and it's almost like my system was saying to me, sleep now. So like when the TV's on and you're dozing it, and I recognised that actually, hang on a minute, and then noticing the times when do I need just that little bit more rest and so on. So the real fundamentals that you're pointing us to here, isn't it, about that rebalance? Am I breathing? Am I...
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about back pain and shoulder pain and those kind of things. That breathing mechanics and poor breathing mechanics, which sounds such a simple thing, will affect the stability of the spine, will affect whether the body is in a fight, flight or a rest, digest state. So immediately, if I said to you, right, I want you to breathe really quickly, do that for a minute, you can create a fight, flight, a stress state in the body. I mean, that's what hyperventilation is.
So with the breathing and sleep, I completely get, and I can see how straight away a lot of the rebalancing could happen. You say that some of the food and digestion stuff is also touched on there. That's often an area where people often struggle very much, because that's where areas of addiction can kind of come in. I know, because I was just looking at the chocolate section of certain things. So what's the work that you're wanting to do with the book once you get into that space of getting the reader to look up their food habits?
Bearing in mind what we talked about with the reconnect stuff, so that's why the reconnect stuff is first. So really understanding yourself and the drives for chocolate, for not necessarily just food. It might be cigarettes, it might be alcohol. And understanding what preempts those drives. Is it a bad day at work? Is it an argument, or is it a level of anxiety that is the crutch for that level of anxiety that's underlying most of the time in one's life is eating certain foods that just makes us feel warm and fuzzy inside, makes us feel better.
Right. Or when it's interesting when people often will, for example, link a coffee, for example, to where they just need that extra bit of energy, so that becomes their default of that. So you're really helping people to become, again, even more mindful of some of those perhaps unconscious or just habitual choices.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I think, if someone wants to smoke, drink, have coffee, whatever, it's not that we're labeling anything as good or bad.
Right, yes.
What we're trying to do is work out what works for someone with a certain set of goals and aspirations.
Right. I see. So
that's again the reason why we put Reconnect first. So if someone wants to run a marathon in 2:15, for example, you know, you can't be going out 4 times a week and having 5 pints. It's just not going to work.
It makes a lot of sense, because then the times when people do make some really good health choices and so on. I remember that, for example, when I was actively pursuing singing, I still sing and so on, but there were times, especially when I had to record, my habits around around sleep, around the care of the voice, in terms of the foods that I would and wouldn't eat. I wouldn't eat chocolate, nuts, all sorts of things easily, because I'm very mindful. So that makes a lot of sense. That then when one's connected and very mindful about the drivers and one's, I guess, intentionality of what they're wanting to get, so that can perhaps begin to combat some of the habit responses. Is that right?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, I've got the workings of the next book are already in the pipeline, where I really want to dive into looking at the values, the core values that are behind a lot of these decisions, and how we can how we can make sure that out of the vast amount of information out there on health and well-being, we can actually pick the bits that are right for us. So
right. Before that book, which sounds really exciting. Tell me. So you've talked about Reconnect, you've talked about Rebalance. So quickly talk me through the last 3. What's the third then?
So Realign is about posture, and I've taken the stance. It's something that I picked up from a mentor of mine over the last 6-7 years. A guy called Matthew Walden, who's written a wonderful chapter in the book called Naturopathic Physical Medicine, and I basically take that philosophy, which is where we look at posture from an evolutionary standpoint. So we look all the way back to single cell life forms, on all the way through up to the human movement patterns. So daily movements that a human being would do, and anything in between there. And we say, if we're looking at certain movements and discrepancies with movement that are undermining optimal alignment and whatnot, where is someone on that evolutionary scale? Okay, so we've got single cell life form down here, then we've got reptilian life form. Now we know that a reptile moves in such a way, or a fish would move in such a way. A bear, for example, so a mammal would move in a different way on all 4 legs, and then a human being moves in another different way, bipedally, so on the hind legs of the mammal, and that basically changes the movement and how we have to operate under the force of gravity and the loading on the joints. So if someone has an unstable spine, we might take them back to use it. You know, if we take them all the way back, we then start some of the rehabilitation off using infant development exercises. And infant development, interestingly, mirrors the very progression of evolution. Of course,
because there's the crawling and so on.
Exactly. So it mirrors, infant development mirrors evolution. So what I tried to do, it's a big topic, but what I tried to do was cover that as accessibly as I could in the Realign section.
Really powerful.
And then the next section is Rebuild. So we say, okay, so we've progressed ourselves through the infant development series, stabilized the joint, stabilized the spine. Now we can really build fitness. We can build strength.
Which is ironically, because that's the place that lots of people come in. Oh, I now want to do this, and look like this, and look like that. But actually, hang on a minute, let's be mindful of the other stuff, so that we're actually ready. A bit like for the person who rushes into a gym, not knowing what anything is, and starts trying to lift weights, and then all of a sudden finds that they're having all sorts of problems and they've done themselves an injury.
Which is why, you know, when we first meet with someone, we'll do a couple of hours physical assessment with someone, and then we'll look at all of the organs, systems, the emotional side. So we're really getting to understand where someone's at, and it's not necessarily saying everyone has to start at base camp.
Yeah.
You know, if you're ready to start halfway up the mountain, absolutely. But you don't want to be. You don't want to be running before you can walk.
Right. So that's the
rebuild is step 4.
Yeah.
So that's the rebuilding fitness. So looking at all of the what we call daily movement patterns.
Right. Just looking at different.
So we've got a push, we've got a pull, we've got a bend, we've got a squat, we've got a twist, a lunge, and then we've got gait, which is walking, running, and sprinting.
Right.
So if you cover all of those movements off, then you've basically hit every single muscle in the body. And then the last section is recover. So it's you've built yourself up, you've rebuilt, and now we want to maintain that and go through cyclical periods of harder work and periods where we really let the body have an easier time and recover and optimize. So there's things in the recover section about optimal levels of magnesium, taking magnesium baths and grounding and earthing yourself. So it really helps you to maintain that health and well-being. Like I said right at the beginning of this chat, it's very different if you're looking at fitness versus health and well-being. And I said to you, in my opinion, fitness is a component of health and well-being.
Yes. Wow, Adam, it sounds like a really, really rich book, and even as you talk through it, and I can really get what I love about it from what I've read and from speaking to you is that I like the way that it enables the reader to reconsider, using more R's. I love alliteration, to reconsider, re-evaluate, and then your word, to reconnect to their own health and well-being, so that they can again be in charge of it, rather than them feel as though it's something that they're an aspect to them that they're wrestling with. It allows for that whole being. Wow. If people are looking to find you or the book, I can see that there's an address here.
movementlifestyle.com.
Cool.
Which so on the website we talk about the 100-day mind-body transformational programs that we run. That's our main program. So there's 4 of us that run that program. So we do over 100 days. We take someone through the 4 hours. I've just subtracted one there. 5 hours. And we help people have that transformational change in 100 days. We work alongside an osteopath and a physiologist who does blood testing and stool sampling as well, to look at the internal environment a little deeper. There's myself and a sports therapist as well. So there's 4 of us on the team. And so that's what's on the website, and the book is also available on Amazon.
Wonderful. Well, from the 5 R's, from the 6th R, Rasheed,
I like that.
the first A, Adam. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Right, excellent stuff. And he's not a bad guitar player and singer too, by the way. Thanks very much, Adam. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.